What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I don't know what time of the year it is when y'all are actually watching this video, but today it is August, about mid-August, and deer season is right around the corner. We've got some states that's opening up about a week from now. It's going to have some velvet hunts, and on into the end of August, the states are going to start opening up, and it's going to be deer season from now until mid-February. So what I thought I'd do is make a video on how you as a hunter can help your taxidermist. This is going to help the hunter as well as the taxidermist because it goes hand in hand to preserve that mount for the rest of your life. You want it done correctly the first time, and this is really going to be beneficial for both sides. If y'all got any ideas that I don't mention, y'all please comment below, let me know, and we can ask some questions back and forth because we're going to have hunters and taxidermists watching this video. So if anybody's got anything that they need to put in their input about that's actually helpful and beneficial, put it in the comments below, and we'll see if we can work that out between all of us, maybe answer some questions, and kind of streamline this whole process. All right, first off, let's start out with social media. One thing that has kind of become a trend on social media, when somebody asks if anybody knows a good taxidermist or a taxidermist local to a certain area, please try and avoid just saying so-and-so's name, he's the best. Because that's nothing but an opinion, and it really isn't giving anybody any information. I mean, it's great to be told that you're the best, and every taxidermist has got somebody that thinks they're the best. So, that being said, it really doesn't help anybody with anything. If you've got straight facts, let somebody know about turnaround times, let somebody know about pricing, let somebody know about honesty. Let somebody know about communication, even location, stuff like that. And it will really help the person that's trying to get their deer mounted. Try and pick a taxidermist that is, noteworthy. Somebody that is actually worthy of mounting a deer and getting it back to a client. That might mean 6 months. It might mean 3 years. But everybody's a little bit different. So everybody's got their own opinion of what a good taxidermist is and what they want to require in a taxidermist. So please try and avoid just that so-and-so, he's the best, because that's not telling anybody anything. If they have a bad experience, then for one thing, it's going to make you look stupid for saying that they were the best. But for another thing, what they think is the best or what they may require out of a taxidermist may not be the same thing that you require. So try to keep that straight facts. That's very beneficial on social media because nowadays it's all opinion and nobody really cares about opinions anymore. It's kind of getting old. Okay, so let's say that you've just killed a really nice buck and you've got to get it out of the woods. Please try to avoid dragging that thing all over rocks. Now, I know you can't help where rocks are at. Most of the time you can't even see them because they're buried under leaves or pine straw. But what a lot of people do not realize is that when they're dragging these bucks over rocks or over any kind of rough terrain, roots or anything, it is just tearing the hair right out of the cape. And they may not even notice when they get it to the taxidermist. But once we get to working with that cape, you can see just stripes in it where it has been drug across rocks and stuff. You can actually see on this cape right here, see these places right here where it looks a little off color. These little spots like that, like this right here. That right there is typically where deer were dragged along the ground. I've even seen people hook them up like a chain and drag them behind a four-wheeler and take every bit of hair off whole side of a deer. So you do not want to do that. And a lot of people just don't know. So that's very valuable information. All right, so you got your deer back at camp now. You're ready to cape the thing out. Y'all, please, please, please. I know that a lot of people have heard from their grandpappy of how to mount or how to cape a deer for a mount. Y'all, grandpappy's way of caping a deer out back in 1960 is not the way you need to do it now. The reason is most forms nowadays are completely different shaped. They're longer, they show more shoulder, more brisket, more armpit, and you just can't fit a cape on a modern form that's caped the same way it used to be with the old style deer forms. Let me show you all what I'm talking about. Like on this form right here, this is just a regular straight mount shoulder form. And you can see how much fur there is coming toward the back of this shoulder. That is a lot of cape. The older forms, a lot of them were cut off right in here. If you ever look at some old mounts, you'll be able to see this little cowlick, but the mount will be cut off right below that cowlick. And y'all, you're talking about another, that's probably 8 to 10 inches, plus what we have to tuck in the back and staple. So make sure that you take plenty of cape. Also, never, ever, ever, ever cut through white fur. The only cut that you should ever make through white fur is when you cut across the belly of the deer, right back in here, when you make that cut around that body to cut that cape off. Let me show y'all this form right here. This is a really good example. Y'all can see how long that full sneak is. Long form, and it comes way back here. That's past this deer's shoulder blades. Not quite halfway down his back, but very close. You have got to have a lot of cape to be able to do that mount. So if you don't cape it correctly and you want this mount, you just can't use that cape. But you can see under this armpit, it is a lot of armpit. You never want to cut through any white hair. The inside of that leg, the armpit, brisket, all that needs to be left whole. When you cape a deer, you want to cut it around the knee, down here. You're going to cut it up the back side of the leg, not the front, ever. On the back side of the leg, where the brown meets the white fur, cut right up that line until you get to where the armpit meets the body, and then just go straight back. And then you can make your ring around the whole torso. I always tell my customers to go behind the rib cage. Take everything almost to the hind quarter. Bring everything to the hind quarter, or the whole deer with the tail on it. I don't care. We can throw away extra cape, but you cannot replace cape that's missing without, doing some kind of repair. And it's just going to show up. It's just not going to look right. You've got the opportunity to make it perfect. So my biggest advice is get on YouTube, Google it, whatever you need to do, and make sure you know where to cape that deer, how to make your cuts. If you make a little hole in it or whatever, that's fixable. That's not really that big a deal, but bring the cape correctly. Do not cut through any white hair, and make sure that it's caped right. Too, the tools that you need. If you don't think that you're going to have the tools that you need in your truck or at your hunting camp, I would suggest a scalpel or a little number 11 X-Acto knife. I would suggest a Sawzall. I would suggest a good cape knife, and also like a gut hook myself. It's really easy to rip down the back of the shoulders, back of the arms and stuff with a gut hook. But when you do that, slow down. Most people get really excited whenever they kill a deer, and they're all fired up, man. They're ready to show people, and that is understandable because I am too. I mean, I freak completely out. I love it. But make sure that when it comes right down to time to process that animal, that you slow down, take a deep breath, get everything like you need it, and make sure you take your time and do that correctly, because that hunt is going to last just a second. Now, the memory will last forever, but you want the mount to last forever too, and you want it to look right. You're the one that's got to look at it every single day, so make sure that that's correct. It's going to be easier on the taxidermist. You're going to end up with a better mount, and a lot of taxidermists are going to charge you a ton of money to have to fix that cape if it's not done correctly. So let's go on to the next point. Once you get your deer caped, do not leave that cape sitting out. In the past, you've heard of people leaving deer hanging. If it's cold outside, you leave it hanging in a tree, it's not going to spoil. Hair will slip off of a cape long before it will ever rot. The reason for that is the second that blood stops flowing through that animal, when it's not alive anymore, bacteria begin to take over, and they begin to eat at the hair follicles on that cape. So if it's, say, 45 degrees outside, and you think that you can leave your deer sitting out overnight hanging in a tree, well, that's okay. You can do that. And the meat will be perfectly fine. But those bacteria have already started working on that cape if they're not completely froze solid. And bacteria can even survive freezing. All they do is go dormant. It doesn't even kill them. So if a cape is not frozen completely solid, then bacteria are thriving and they are eating at your hair follicles on your cape. And after you go to tanning it, the hair just starts falling out, pulling out. A lot of people do not realize this. They try to treat the cape like they treat the meat. You do not want to do that. That is not correct. And just for general knowledge, I just want y'all to know that the faster you can get that cape either on ice or frozen, the better off you are. Now, ice is not going to protect it from bacteria. It's going to slow everything way down. But even if you're going to put it on ice, do not put it directly on ice and do not put it in water. That will make the hair fall out almost immediately. Once it soaks in water for about a night or so, that hair will get loose and it's just going to start falling right out. So what I would do is take your cape, ball it up, put it in a bag. Put ice in the bottom of a cooler, put your cape in there, cover it in ice. It's even not a bad idea to put ice down in the cooler and then lay the cape out flat and cover it in ice in a bag just to get that cold to it as fast as possible. But just make sure that bag's not leaking, because as that ice melts, you never want that cape sitting in water, especially not submerged. So make sure you keep your drain plug open, make sure your bag, double bag it, triple bag it, whatever you need to do. But don't let water get to that cape while it's sitting on that ice. So next, if you go to drop a deer off at your taxidermist, try and get all of your information together. I don't know how it is in every state, but here in Alabama, we now have a law to where you have to have your confirmation number, your harvest record, your date that it was killed, all of that stuff has got to be recorded in the taxidermy shop and in the processing shop. So when you get that deer and you've got all that information, go ahead and either write it down somewhere or have it screenshot on your phone. Have that stuff prepared so that when you walk into the taxidermy shop, you're not standing there, for an hour trying to dig through records or trying to call somebody or trying to get all this information that you should have already had. Not to mention, the fact that it could get you in trouble because you don't already have it on you. But at the same time, we are very, very busy during deer season. So any way that you can streamline that process. I love to sit there and talk to clients when they're in my shop. I love hearing the deer hunting stories and all of that. But when it comes right down to the technical end of it, the bookkeeping and all, I hate dealing with that. So anytime somebody comes in, they're like, yeah, man, here's my information. I can go ahead and write it down, get that out of the way, and I can go back to what I was doing, and we can talk about deer hunting or whatever. All right, now the last point that I've got. Taxidermy prices vary all over the board. I've seen prices as cheap as $250, and right now, you can't even mount a deer for $250, so I don't even know what those people are trying to do. But, they go up to $1,500, $2,000. Well, if you don't like a taxidermist price, don't let them know that. Don't mention it on social media. Let's not even talk about it because it really doesn't even matter. Every taxidermist has got a price set based on either their lifestyle, what they feel like they're worth or capable of, or their experience or whatever. It really doesn't matter. But if they're in business and they're charging that amount, then apparently it's working. Obviously they're able to have a business. Otherwise they'll go out of business, and that will sort itself out without anybody telling them that they're too expensive. I keep seeing this over and over and over again. And it doesn't matter how much somebody is. If somebody's charging $200 right now and losing $100 a deer when they mount it, if they go up to $300, somebody is going to bash them for going up $100. And that just ain't right. Fortunately, I don't get a whole lot of that criticism because I'm very open and honest about what I think about those people. And I also don't mind telling them to their face or telling them on social media what I think about what they're saying. So, people just don't, I don't know, they just don't bother me with it because they know that I really don't care. But at the same time, you can find a taxidermist that will fit your needs, that will charge something comparable to what you want to pay. Now, the quality may not be there depending on, who they are and what kind of money they charge. I've seen some very expensive taxidermists that do very shoddy work. And I've also seen some guys that are really cheap that do great work. So you just never know. A lot of that comes down to personal preference. And a lot of it too comes from word of mouth. Like if you know people that know people, a lot of times you can find a good taxidermist that way just because it's somebody that you trust that taxidermist. That's what I would suggest doing. So in the meantime, trust the taxidermist to charge what they feel like they need to charge. If you don't think you can touch that price with a 10-foot pole, turn around, walk the other way. There's plenty of them around and you can go and find another one. But at the same time, have respect for them for being a business, have respect for them for being a person. Like the last thing, one of the most important things I think I ever learned when I was working a normal day job is when I first kind of got started in management, there was somebody that I just couldn't stand, wanted to get rid of them. I mean, I wanted them gone. And the owner of the company actually told me, he said, be very, very careful before you decide to fire a man over your own emotional, decisions or opinions or anything. Not just for legal reasons, but because when you take money out of a man's pocket, you are changing his lifestyle. You're changing the way that he can support his family, support himself, pay his bills, his children. You're altering that man's life by your one decision. So be very careful of who you criticize for what they do or what they charge in their business, especially if it's a small business, local business. Support them or don't support them. But don't worry too much about what they're charging, because they've got a reason for it. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to make a whole lot more sense if you were to ask them why. Thank you so much for sitting here listening to me. I'm hoping that this is a little bit helpful for some people. And like I said, on both sides of the table, if y'all want to do some comments below about what y'all think about taxidermy, what y'all think about the hunters on the other end. There's a lot of deer hunters. Most deer hunters, I would say, are not taxidermists. And there are a lot of taxidermists, to my surprise, I didn't realize it until I started to get in the business, but most taxidermists are not deer hunters. So, there's a lot of questions out there, and I'm trying to fill that gap, trying to bridge that gap between hunters and taxidermists to where, with a little bit of conversation, we can kind of make sense out of all of the different problems that we experience on both ends of the spectrum, so that maybe, the hunters won't get screwed out of money and the taxidermists won't have to overwork themselves just because of mistakes that maybe hunters just didn't know. So guys, really appreciate you coming by. Y'all comment below with any questions or comments, and we'll see y'all in the next video.